Hello everybody and welcome. This is Roland Hartmann from Graphic in Motion, and in this tutorial I want to show you how to customize my 3D action title template. Before we get started in After Effects, I want to show you the folder structure and give you 2 or 3 hints how to use this template. So first of all, before you install or before you open up one of the project files with After Effects, I recommend to install the Impact font. You see that there is inside the links folder, you can find the Impact free font download link, and just follow this link and please install this font on your system. Because if you do not do this and open up one of the versions we have here, then it can happen that the layout will be a little bit shifted around and that you have to do a little bit of cleaning here, but I will show you this later on. So first of all, you see that we have 2 project folders here, and one is called the No Plugins folder and the other one is called the Optical Flares folder. And of course, the first one, if you open this up, you have a project file that doesn't need any third-party plugins. So you can open this project with any version of After Effects CS5 and above. And the second one needs the Videocopilot Optical Flares plugin. So if you have this installed and you want to do some changes to the shape of the flares, then you can use this version. Otherwise, I would recommend to use the No Plugins version because it just saves a little bit of render power too. So for my customization example, I will use the No Plugins version. Of course, I have the Impact font already installed on my system. And if you did that and open up the project, then you should see something like this. You see there are already a few compositions open, and I will guide you step by step through the customization process. So first of all, what I want to do is, before I even change my title here, I want to put in some footage because I want to have something in here to look at, because I do not like this boring white placeholder here. So therefore we just move to the footage folder, and you see this is just a plain white layer, and we have to change this immediately. So for this customization example, I thought that we will do something like an opener for a YouTube channel, and in my case it will be a sim racing YouTube channel. So I just import my footage. I just did drag and drop it into my project folder here, or project window here. You could also just double click on the empty space here, and then you can also import your footage, or of course you can use, and now you will not even see it because it's outside of my recording area, but you can use File, then Import, and Import File, and this will bring you also to the same dialog box. Okay, so I have my footage here, and I will just double click now, and this will open it up in the footage window. And I do this because I want to do some editing. If you have already a nice edited footage, you of course do not have to do this and can skip this step, sorry. But I just need to do some editing because I need some cool shots here. And the first shot, let's say I want to use, is this, whatever car it is. And I will just cut out a piece like this. Looks really cool. Let's say until this point, and then I will make sure that I am in my footage composition, and then I can just put my cursor on first frame and now just add my footage. So let's see, the car is approaching us. Then here we have a cut, so I just want to change this a little bit. All right, here. And these cut markers just indicate that in our final render you will see that we have some cuts, of course, because we have different angles, and we also have these distortions happening. You probably saw them in the preview video. And just to make it easier for you to align or cut your footage, I just put in these 2 markers, and they represent basically this transition here and this transition here. So the 2 main transitions between the close-ups of the letters. So I want to show you, or I want to see the car approaching the camera, then we cut over to this, and then we just take whatever follows. That's quite cool. And I just want to increase the size a bit because it's a little bit too small. You know, it's just a YouTube video that I downloaded here, and I will just scale it up. I will lose a little bit of resolution, but it really doesn't matter in my case. So now let's go back to our setup and see what we have got. And now you see we already see our video here. And now I can start playing around with the look here. So the first thing I want to do now is to change my title, because I do not want to make an intro saying 3D action title. I want to make an intro that says Sim Racer's Paradise. Therefore I have to change the source text. And changing the source text is pretty easy. You just select this title layer and make it visible for now. And just for a moment during customization, we will just make these Element 3D layers invisible. So just select them and make them invisible. And now you see we have our source text here. And now I want to change the text, and I just double click this layer and I enter Sim Racer's Paradise. And I made a mistake here, so correct it. And now you see that already the shadow updated, and I will just disable my title layer and enable my 3D layers. And now we will take a look whether this lines up. And sometimes you have to do a little bit of tweaking, as in my case, I probably have to do a little bit of tweaking because the shadow doesn't line up perfectly with our 3D text, but this is absolutely no problem. Therefore, I just select the shadow layer. And in my case, I have to scale it up a little bit because you see that on the end here, it's a little bit too small. So I will just scale it to 100%. Now it's a little bit too big. So let's do something in between. It was on 95. Let's do it 97. And now you see that it fits quite nice. Okay, so the next step that we want to do is that we want to maybe change the font. If you do not like the impact font that I used, we can of course change that. So when I select my source layer and I say I want to change the font to whatever, let's say to the Impress BT, whatever it is, you see that the 3D text updated, but the title shadow and the title close did not. So let's undo that by pressing Ctrl Z. And if you want to change the font, what you have to do is you have to select all the green layers at once. So please select the first title layer, hold down Shift and select the last one so that the title shadow and the 3 glow layers are selected. And now we can change the font. And let's say we do not want to use the impact. We want to use maybe this one. Looks quite cool, but it's a little bit too big. But you see now everything changed accordingly to what I put in. And you could of course now change the size, make it smaller, and everything will change accordingly. In this case, you see that now, of course, you would have to a little bit reposition the shadow again, like this. But for my example, I just will stay with my impact font, so I will just undo these steps. So please keep in mind, if you want to change the font, the size of the characters, the leading or the tracking or whatever, please select all of the layers before applying these changes. But for me, this is perfect. I like the font, I like the title, and now I can just start to stylize this. Let's say that for this example, we want to have some kind of a cooler look, and with cooler, I mean a little bit bluish. So I can choose the look setup color layer here on top of my setup composition. And you see that I have a few possibilities here. So I can choose the color of the lights, and let's take a look what it does if I change this color. You see that everything gets kind of a bluish look, and I want to do this actually, but not that strong, just a little bit. And I want to do the same with my flare colors. So I just take over the same color so that we have a little bit of a bluish tint here. And you see I have also a control over the vignette strength. So if I set this to 0, you see that the vignette will disappear. And if I set it to 100, then it's kind of strong. And this is just controlling the opacity of our vignette. And I will just leave it with the 50, with the standard value for now. So now we are more or less finished with the customization, at least in our setup composition. Now we can deal with the next possibilities that we have got here. So we already put in our footage. We do not have to do anything here, but we can move to our front texture composition. And inside the front texture composition, we can manipulate or control what will be visible on our letters. So to demonstrate this, to make this a little bit clearer, I will just select a frame where we can see our letters a little bit better. So let's go back to our front texture. And maybe you do not want to use the color correction that I applied. You can just make this layer invisible and you see the original color correction of the footage. So maybe your footage that you imported is already really great color corrected, so you can just turn this off and now you can go back to the setup and you will see that now the colors have changed here. But if you want to keep it, I just applied some kind of a vintage look to create this little bit desaturated look. In my case, I probably do not even want to do it. I just want to increase the contrast a bit and maybe just keep it quite colorful like this. Let's go back to our setup and it looks not that bad. So what else could we do here? If we want to create something abstract, for example, you could also apply some effects here. So maybe just as an example, if you want to put in a collider effect, CC collider, I will show you what this does. So now we have something really crazy going on, and yeah, you see what you could do with this. You know, you could put in some, I don't know, some graphics, some even a still frame and animate the value, and then you get something really crazy. So let's go to the setup so that you see what this does. Now we have this really crazy pattern animating on our text, and if we take a look at a later frame, in the background we still have our footage and a little bit abstract. I will just change this to full resolution so that you can see it. Yeah, you can see that there is still our background. But in my case, I do not want to make an abstract intro, which you can do easily, you see. I just want to make a normal video intro. So we will leave that as this, and maybe I will even decrease the saturation again, and maybe I will also just change the blue a bit and increase it a bit overall and decrease the reds a bit because actually I want to make a bit of a bluish look here. Maybe like this. Let's go back to our setup. Let's take a look how it looks. Yeah, perfect. Okay, so now let's move on. And the next thing you can do is to control the look of your background. So move to the BG composition and you see that this is what you will get, or this is what you will see in the background. And again, here you can change quite a few things. The first thing you can change is the matte. So let's enter the BG matte. You can double click, or you should also be open here, just move on one composition. And now we will just turn off this transparency grid. And you see what we have here. We have a pattern made with the grid effect, and then at a certain point it changes to this subtitle. So if you want to enter a subtitle, you have to change it right inside the BG matte composition, and we will do this now. So we will just enter, let's say, a web address like Racers Paradise dot whatever net. So I do not even know whether this really exists, but yeah, I do not want to make advertisement here. It's just a random name that I'm using here. So now let's go back to our BG and you see what's happening. And this is kind of an alpha matte. So or a luma matte, I should say. So first of all, or in the beginning, we just see our pattern with our footage, and then we will see the footage only inside our text. Yeah. So you can put in whatever you want here. And you also have the possibility to enter some kind of a logo or whatever. So if you move back to the BG matte composition and you just enable the logo composition, you see that now we have the graphic in motion logo in white. And when I go back to my BG, you see that this will be visible now throughout the whole animation. So you could put in your logo, you could put in another text, you could put in whatever you want, as long as it's white and it will be visible behind the 3D text. So to change the logo, of course, you can double click the logo layer or just move one composition further. And you see that there is my example logo. And now you can just put in or import your logo by go to or double click in the project window and then import your stuff and drag it on top of my logo. And you know how you import a logo into After Effects. You do not need to change any of the color settings. The tint effect will be applied automatically inside the BG matte. So for now, I do not want my logo to be visible, but I will show you this just as an example how it will look like. So we have the SimRacer's Paradise and my logo is visible in the background. And in the end, we will have our text and our logo. Another possibility you have is to change the look of the footage. You see that I apply the tint effect, and so it looks kind of black and white. So it really depends however you want to set this up. You can just disable it or change the value here to give it more or less saturation. In this case, I want to have a little bit more saturation because I like the color. And then there is also a simple curves effect just to increase the contrast to create something a little bit more interesting. So now we just move to the BG matte and I just disable my logo because I do not want a logo to be shown. I just want to have this pattern and I want to have my title in the end. And now we move on to our audio composition, and then you could of course just import the audio if you use or if you want to use the same as I did in my video example. Then you can just go to links and follow this logo and items link and purchase the music and then just drag it in here and be sure that it starts with frame 0. And then you can move on to the render composition and you could just immediately render it out. But I recommend to still spend a little bit of time to do some color correction. And I will show you what possibilities you have got here. So let's select the layer, the top layer here called FX and color correction. And you will see we have a few possibilities here. So the first two possibilities are the strength of our distortion effects. And these distortion effects I applied to adjustment layers. You can see where they are happening. So let's go to about 3 seconds and now we will take a look what these layers do. So if we increase the RGB split from 25 to 100, you will see that the RGB split is way more intensive, and I can reduce it to 0 and you see that it's gone. The same for the distortion strength. 100 makes it really bad and 0 turns it off completely. So you can change whether you want to have a little bit of a cleaner look or whether you want to have this dirty look as in the preview video. Then I would recommend to leave the values, and I think it was 25 and 35. Yeah. And the next effect is a curves effect and a color balance. So if I turn down both of them or if I disable both of them, you see that this is pretty much the same look as we have got here in our original setup composition, only without the distortion and the RGB split. So now we go to our render comp and we will change the look. So I want to increase the contrast a bit, and that's done by the curve. So you just have to enable it, and let's see. I just want to increase the blues a bit because we want to make a bluish look. So let's turn this up a little bit. And then I have my color balance, and I made some kind of a retro setup here, but you can of course just reset all the values and start your own grading or put in whatever color grade or color correction effect you prefer. So for me, I just want to increase the red in the shadows a bit, just a bit, tiny bit, and let's say that the blue in the highlights a bit. How does this look now? So we have a really bluish. I need a little bit more of red here, I think. The midtones, yeah, I'm not sure. Maybe we just make it, keep it like that. Let's take a look how it looks in the end. And now we are only to a quarter resolution, so I will just bring this up to full resolution and take a look. And I actually like it. Only one thing that disturbs me is we have a lot of white in our footage, and I want to change the glow effect a little bit. It's a little bit too strong for my taste, so let's see how it looks in the beginning. In the beginning, it's actually quite good. The only thing I do not like now is that our background is grayish and that our foreground is so bluish. So I will go back to my front texture and change my color correction that I did here. Just reset this and let's go back to the render comp and take a look. Yeah, this looks definitely better for me. So you can play around and create a really cool look. So let's continue clicking through our scenes and checking whether it looks good. Actually, I could do this on half resolution to save a little bit of time. And now I really like the style. It looks really cool. And maybe I even bring back some of the blue now here. Like so. Let's see how it looks in the end. And it looks really cool. I just want to change the glow a little bit, and therefore you see that we have the setup layer and it says edit glow on this layer, and there's the glow effect. And in this case I just want to decrease the intensity from 0.5 to 0.3, and now I'm perfectly fine with this customization. And now you see in the end, then the light will turn off, a little bit of distortion is happening, and then suddenly the light is gone and we have our subtitle visible here, and then it just will fade off. So I hope that you like this template, and I really hope that you create some nice animations and intros for your YouTube channels or for whatever with it. If you have any questions, feel free to write me a personal message through my VideoHive profile or also through my website, which is www.graphicinmotion.com. Thank you very much for watching, and I really hope to see you soon. Goodbye.